Hello, Forgers. This is Bonfrey from L World, and you're watching FOE Advance. I wanted to say thanks for the kind words I've received over the last months regarding one of my last videos, which has been a while since I've published anything. It's because my dad had a stroke, and I've been taking care of him and my mom, being their only child, and been doing that has basically become a case manager for them for long-term care in our state of Arizona. Learned a lot, and gosh, more than I ever thought I would have to about that type of thing, but I'm the better for it, and I think at this point they are too. So anyway, I wanted to talk about guilds today, and I was going to start with some of the, I guess, past guild mistakes that I've made in terms of either choosing a guild in the first place or maybe just not even being aware, especially when I was early in the game, that just choosing to stay with a particular guild was a strategy in itself, although I don't think it was intentional at that time. Over the years, as I've played, I've learned a lot more about my partnering with the guilds I've been with and guilds that I've started and led myself, and kind of comings and goings of all that. And I wanted to share that with you because if you are in the game and you are in a guild, most likely you are. Typically, those that are not in a guild like to self-level, or they're just taking a break, or they're just chilling because they aren't going to meet general guild requirements. Requirements vary greatly, as you may know, between guilds. And one of the best ways to look at guild requirements is to look for a possible fit for your playing style. Because you may be a fighter, and if you're a fighter, you're going to want to find a guild that really focuses on fighting and battling. And now that may be in VG or also in Guild Battlegrounds. Right here I have, just for our L World, this screen has the top 10 guilds on it. And by the way, if you've ever wondered how guilds become number 1 or number 5 or 10 or whatever, you can reference a ranking overview document that's out there on Forge of Empires fandom. It basically explains how guilds level and how they become more prestigious. And it's an equation here basically that has to do with how much GVG real estate that given guild can hold on to. And it has to also do now with Guild Battlegrounds. So I'm not going to get into those technicals. If you want to really dig in, you can look into that. In my world, there are a number of guilds that sort of square off. There's guilds that, of course, all of them have allies, and then all of them have enemies, especially if they're higher ranked guilds. A lot of your lower ranked guilds don't necessarily choose allies or enemies, and they don't really pick any fights because they don't play either GVG or GBG, so they really don't get in anyone's way, and they just kind of do their thing, which is fine for a lot of people depending on what your play style is. So when I first joined the game, I was invited by a friend in real life, and he said, hey, this is fun, check this out, showed it to me. I joined the guild that he happened to have just sort of stumbled into when he started playing the game. And what I didn't realize at the time, and for quite a while, was that the speed and the level of knowledge that I acquired from being in that guild was a lot less than I probably would have gained had I been in a better guild, at least a guild that was more of a fit for me, because I wanted to be a high growth player. So there was a lot of things I didn't know how to deal with. That guild, for a long time, the leaders weren't necessarily real adept at the game, and I didn't know that one way or the other. And at that time, we were only doing forge point swaps, instead of doing locks, like with 1.9 or higher. I probably played for a couple of years not knowing much about that. Of course, this goes back like 7 or 8 years. So we, as I moved on and stayed with the game, I realized, maybe there's more out there, because then I would see my buildings, my GBs getting sniped, or didn't really understand what that was, or why that was happening. And one side of me thought, oh, well, maybe someone's just generously putting, forge points on my buildings to get medals and prints. But, after a while, I finally figured out how sort of all that works. So that first guild I joined imploded. And again, I stayed way too long, but by the time that happened, I joined another guild. And then I realized, okay, I need to be looking like at the descriptions of what the guilds say about themselves on public, right? So you can go out and look at these guild descriptions for any given guild you may want to join. And this can help a lot. Like if it's a quality guild, they're going to tell you all the requirements, what their strengths are. Perhaps you can read between the lines about weaknesses as well, and see if it's a fit for you. Because some players want to grow slow, some want to be aggressive, some want to battle, some want to mainly trade or have help from higher level players to get like unfair trades for goods, or even fair trades for goods. So you'll see guilds that are even named as such, like fair traders and things like that. And then, guilds like, I've just moved back to a guild that I have many friends in from years ago, that was DC, Discarnate Coalition. Now it's Deliberate Chaos, because over time, things change, right? Guilds merge, key players move on from the game. Some key players stay in the game. So, there's people in this guild that I never would have expected to see in this guild maybe, 4 years ago, right? Maybe even people that were in guilds that our guild is not allied with, that we compete with in guild versus guild, etc. So, for example, in our guild description, it's easy to see what we're all about, right? And what's nice about a very active guild, what I look for is a guild that has a lot of members, a lot of membership. Because if there are 60, 70, 80 people in a guild, that means by default, they're probably going to have a very active leveling, GB leveling threads. Like in this case, DC is a little bit higher level guild. We don't have a 1.9 thread. We have a 1.92. And then for treasury, military buildings, we do an additional bonus. Like we have a 1.3 to 1.95. Plus, if you have a higher level arc, you're supposed to add a break even for those types of buildings, because those benefit a battle guild in our case, right? If we're leveling military buildings or increasing the level of buildings that the treasury benefits from, they want to see a break even going to help those players. So this is great because I've kind of entered into a phase of the game for me where I'm reevaluating my city because of the latest changes with Inno, where they are wanting to all of a sudden kind of shine a light on city defense, right? The blue shield stuff. So I actually dug out a number of my ritual flames, which I was just holding on to. A lot of people have sold these off over the years. I mean, I've been playing this game for years and years and years and never wanted or needed to use these things because of my personal gameplay strategy. That's all changing, and now I built an SBC, and I kind of feel like this is like the latest thing, just because Inno has put some emphasis on the GE5 situation, but that's fine. I mean, it's just forcing me to look at my city, put away some buildings that don't make as much sense. I mean, I've been very focused on my red attack numbers over the years, of course, because I battle a lot, and now I'm having to pay attention to the blue numbers. But anyway, all that said, it's great to be in a really active guild that focuses on GB leveling, because when I want to open up a great building and level it, I know that I'm going to get response pretty quickly when I put it on that thread, and therefore probably not going to get sniped, and I'm going to get through that building leveling process a lot quicker than if I'm in a dead guild that has maybe like 8 or 9 or 10 or 15 people in it. Now, I might say dead guild. That could be fine for a lot of people. I mean, I've been kind of hanging out in about a 20-person guild in L World for like the last 7 or 8 months, just because I needed to chill. I didn't have the time and energy to hit battle minimums and really participate in swap threads. So, I found a guild through some of the other players I've met in the game, asked them how it is over there. And, I also found that guild through just helping, some of the members there. It's a guild I kind of adopted to, give them like unfair trades and help them age up and give them some advice and tips on growth and not only how to help run their guild, but to benefit the players the most. So anyway, I just recently moved over to this other one, but I'm at a season where I'm going to enjoy some battles. Obviously, if you are a battle-minded person and you want to get the player points and the benefits related to that, such as, getting your SOHs, things like that, you want to be in a guild that really, really battles. And in that case, I would think if you're a fighter, you're going to want to be in probably, the top 50 area of guilds. And sometimes, depending on your reputation, if you have any, or depending on your stats, some guilds may not let you in right away if you request a join. Just depends. But if, somebody can vouch for you, if you want to get into a more prestigious guild and you're going to be active, then cool. Every guild I've ever left and, for whatever reason, I've left amicably. So maybe later on as things change, I was able to go back and stay for a while, and benefit. It's a mutual benefit, right? And that's one of the things I've seen higher level players in our world just move in for a season, right? They'll join an allied guild for one round of battlegrounds and then jump out, go to another guild that's an ally, go help them out. So, this idea of having to kind of like maybe get married and stay in a guild forever doesn't necessarily have to track that way. You can be creative in your guild journey, if you will, in this game. If I'm in another world with a diamond farm, I'm not going to go after a top 10 guild. I'm going to look for guilds that are way down here, that are called like diamond farmers or taking time off to farm or, just whatever it may be, because I don't necessarily have the time in my diamond farm worlds to like do a bunch of, battles and participate in all kinds of guild minimum requirements. So, that's another thing. And then of course, one of the major things you're going to see as requirements in guilds is going to be like, how many levels of GE do you need to complete each week? And a lot of them are, really uptight about that. They want to have that guild ranking on, hey, we won't tolerate any losses on guild expedition, for example. And, some guilds, it's just a guideline. Like, hey, you need 8 encounters or whatever. Other guilds are like, no, you got to hit GE4 every week. And that's like the guild I'm in. That's a given. So, anyway, those are some of the major things. Now, one thing that you may have experienced in your gameplay is, say you're in guild XYZ, and that guild doesn't really stick out, doesn't really do anything, as a majority of the guilds don't. Majority of guilds don't play battlegrounds intensely. They don't play guild versus guild intensely. But let's say you move guilds, and then all of a sudden you start getting attacked and sniped by your neighborhood. Well, the reason for that can be that if you happen to have dropped into a guild that has some enemies, and some of those enemies, for whatever reason, are in your neighborhood, they'll see your association with that guild and then they'll start plundering you. It's certainly something that, is an aspect of the game that is a little bit social, but it's also competitive. And, over the years, I just don't get upset if somebody plunders me. The way I look at it is like, if I'm not around and I'm not collecting my city on time and I'm exposed and they plunder me, fine. I mean, it's a function of the game. It's not something that I get hot about anymore, because it's just one of the many functions of the game, and but that is one thing that, because I've seen players say, I don't understand, like, and then I aged up, for example, and now I'm in Future Era. Well, a lot of people camp in Future Era, and a lot of active guilds, have players in FE. So all of a sudden you might start getting plundered there. And again, if you are sick of that or you don't want that, you may look at, well, who's plundering me? And then maybe you decide to become a part of their guild and ask to join, to say, well, I want to be on the other side of this. Every world has generally 2 to 3 guilds that are at the top that are always at each other's throats. I mean, almost like very serious grudges, right? Over years and years. In our case, it's GF and Solo and Ronin and kind of against a lot of others, that are on this list as well, or vice versa. So, they have their allies and we have ours, but I think that adds a healthy competition to the game, if that's the type of player you want to be. Again, if you want to just chill and build and swap and trade, just find a guild. There's hundreds of pages of guilds. Just look for a description that looks good, or maybe you found players in the game that you like their playing style, or they've been helpful to you. See what their guild looks like, and just realize you can move around. You don't have to stay in one place. And I would encourage you to move around if you haven't been in more than one guild during your tenure in the game. I would encourage you to visit at least 1 or 2 other guilds over, maybe the next few months, so that you can just see how they do things differently. You can get a lot from that, a lot of knowledge and experience, as well as actual help in the game. So anyway, I think that's all I have for guild discussion today. The one-way conversation with myself here. Hopefully this has been helpful, and if you do have questions or comments, please put them on the thread and subscribe and like and all that stuff, and I'll keep trying to make these videos. Thanks again.